Hey, welcome to Living Ardently. I'm your host, Adrian Giraldi, and we are back with one of our last episodes of this season, of this year rather. And I'm really excited about who we have on today. And you might have heard of a couple of things that she's been doing, so we'll get into introducing her in just a little bit. So let's get into it. Today's guest is a Franciscan grad. She has managed a $350 billion brand, and she's a founder of Ascend. Ascend Communications Enclave. And most recently, what you may have heard a lot on social media is, and most recently, one you might have heard a lot is Mission to Launch on Instagram. So welcome my guest, the founder of all of these things, Elena Nunez Murdock. Welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm super excited.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. A fellow friend of ours, I guess works for Mission to Launch, Koji de Ramos now. Got us in contact, and I'm really excited to kind of have you because it's been everywhere on my social media feed. Everyone I know is like doing it, and then you have some really cool people that I know from Ave that are doing it too. I just saw Peter Vandervoort. He used to be an employee over at Ave, and he was awesome. I think head of security, and he was such a great guy to kind of like a good Catholic man to kind of look up to as a student. So I saw him recently on Mission to Launch his Instagram, so I was like, oh, that's awesome. Look at that, dude.
Yeah, we have some amazing people with Mission to Launch.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a lot about that and in a little bit, but we're going to start off like we like to with some rapid fire questions and see if I can stump you with some of these really random questions that we ask our guest.
That's good.
Ready?
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Fill in the blank. Taylor Swift is blank.
Kind of sad because she's a sellout.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Ariel or Jasmine?
Jasmine.
Dusk or dawn?
Dusk.
Favorite season?
Winter.
Cake or pie?
Pie, always.
Pie, always. Now that's a hot take. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Sea salt caramel with caramel ribbons from Salt and Straw.
Ooh, that sounds great. Very unique. What is your favorite number?
7.
Have you worn socks with sandals?
Never.
Ooh. Why? What does a person need to be happy?
God and living your dreams in an abundant way and being authentically yourself.
Are rats cute?
No.
Do you know how to salsa dance?
I do.
Oh, I think that's the first I do that I've had to that question. Every person I ask is like, no. What is the do you know what the acronym SCUBA stands for?
I don't.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
No.
What is the ideal outside temperature?
25 degrees.
What? 25 degrees?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I'm from Chicago, man.
Oh, you're from Chicago? That's great. Yeah, I wish I'd get 25 degrees out here in Florida. It's like 60 at the lowest.
Right.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hot do you like a shower?
Like all the way. All of the hotness.
A 10. Everything boiling, skin needs to burn off. Have you ever tasted soap?
Unfortunately.
If you're really hungry, would you eat a bug?
No.
What's your favorite carnival food?
Oh boy, I haven't been to a carnival in a hot sec. I don't know, like apples, right? Caramel covered apples.
Caramel apples, yeah, those are good. Those are hard to eat, but they're good.
Yeah.
How many redheads are you friends with?
I have a client who's a redhead. Does that count? One.
Have you ever been to Africa?
No.
What is the most hours you watch of TV in a single day?
Oh boy, maybe like in college, maybe like 8, like binge watch.
Yeah, we've all done that at least once in our life. Gossip Girl. Yes. I'm trying to get into was it New Girl? That one.
Zoe Deschanel, so funny.
Yeah. If you see a spider in your house, do you kill it or set it free?
Kill it. I'm not getting bitten.
Right. Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Dark.
Polka dots or stripes?
Neither.
Favorite movie?
That's a hard one. Oh boy. So many going through my head. Right now, Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans. That's a good one. Name your top 3 celebrities.
Okay. You know, for living in LA, I really haven't seen them. I've seen like 2 celebrities in 3 years. It's so weird.
I don't even know celebrity names.
Right? Zac Efron, because he recently did that documentary on Netflix. Oh, yeah. He showed Lords, which was so super cool.
That's awesome.
So that was a new favorite. Other celebrities, I guess Justin Bieber, because he like recently came back to the faith, or like or like Christianity specifically. I don't like his music though. I just think it's cool that he is using his But and then third celebrity, man. Oh, Zoe Deschanel. I love her.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, replace one maybe. Justin Bieber or Blake Lively. She's really cool.
Oh yes, that's a good one. What's your favorite clothing brand?
Givenchy.
Disneyland or Disney World?
Six Flags.
Six Flags. Marvel or Star Wars?
Marvel.
LA or New York?
LA.
Do you find handlebar mustaches to be handsome?
Yes. I think they're interesting.
Yeah, the ones that go like that, right?
Yeah, I have a friend who
or no, they're the ones that go like down here. Is that? I don't know.
They like both. I don't know. I have a friend who's like from Stanford who specifically does that to throw people off.
That's awesome. And then last question. Who inspires you?
One of my mentors, his name is Sean Feeler, and he is super inspiring because he has a big family. He has a hedge fund, or he's in private equity. He is one of the largest private equity firms probably in the country, and he has donated over $35 million to Catholic ministries and nonprofits, showing that you can. And he's very passionate about philanthropy, so showing that you can be Catholic, make money and keep that money, and then also be very generous and not lose sight of God and what's important.
That's awesome. Perfect. What a great way to end that one. All right, so now that we got some of your random facts about you, things that you like, things you don't like, let's get a bit of your faith background. Were you like raised Catholic, converted to Catholicism? How so? Tell me everything.
I was raised Catholic by both of my parents, and I'm the oldest of 6. And I grew up, going to regular Sunday mass. I grew up in Palo Alto, and then I was raised in Chicago. So 3rd grade on, I was in Chicago, hence the cold weather love.
Yeah.
I went to high school in Chicago. I went to an Open State all girls school. It's called the Willows Academy.
Cool.
And I really grew in a lot of grit and perseverance in my high school years. And have always loved Saint Therese. She's my confirmation saint and my patron saint, and it always helped me with like job related things, and it's just the best.
That's awesome. So when you were growing up from in Chicago, did you have like close friends from your school like that kind of journeyed with you throughout that time?
I definitely had good friends, but we didn't really, even though we were at a Catholic school, we didn't talk a lot about faith. It was kind of like faith was kind of like everywhere, and we were like, yeah, we're at a Catholic school, and like there was not a lot of. I was very blessed in that I grew up in a great environment, and I didn't actually know a single swear word, for example, until I was like at the end of my senior year of high school. We had a transfer, and there was like a girl who was swearing all the time, and I had never heard like any of those words, including the F word. So I grew up in a in a great environment, but we didn't really. We had adoration like every Friday. That we had mass every day at high school. If you wanted to go, you could do that, either that or go to study hall. And there was a good deal of my friends went to mass every day. So it was something that I just grew up kind of seeing. And then I would say my senior year, I had a crisis, not in faith, but just like with my parents. They wanted to homeschool me, and I didn't want to be homeschooled because I was like a senior, why would I do that this year? So they were like, that's fine. Like, you can go to school, but you can't take the bus. So I lived 40 minutes away from my high school, and there was a bus that came from the school to my town that would take us, to stop at all the other towns. And then they were like, you can't drive. So I couldn't drive my car. So you have to find a way to get to school that doesn't involve any obvious transportation to me. And because they really wanted to homeschool me, so they thought I would just give up. And so the summer before my senior year, I went to mass every day on my bike, and I was praying to Saint Therese, like a perpetual novena of like, how am I going to get to high school? And so there was 2 parishioners there who were older, and they were like, you're in high school. Why are you coming to mass every day, first of all? And so like, why are you praying? Because I was like praying on my knees in front of the altar, like after mass, like really wanted to go back. And so I had 2 random people volunteer to drive me every morning at 5 a.m. Like, so they would split up the week, and they would take me to school. So I had like the morning covered, which was great. Saint Therese intercession. And then on the afternoon, for half of the year, I found a way to get back home. But then in January, that person was like, I don't want to drive you like an extra 10 minutes out of my way. So like, I remember every day from like January to May, I had legitimately every day going into school, I had no idea how I was going to get back home. And if I told my parents that, then they would pull me out of school and they would homeschool me. So it was really intense. And that I kind of like grit and perseverance. If I really want something, like it's going to happen. Yeah.
And that kind of, that instilled, I guess, into the rest of your life. 'Cause that's amazing. That's something that I don't think, I had to walk 30 minutes from my bus stop to go home. And then some days my dad would pick me up. And that was like my junior year, but I never had to like choose, So then after all of this stuff in high school, you ended up going, I guess, did you do your undergrad at Franciscan?
Yes, I went to Franciscan. I was also in the Little Flower household.
Oh, cool.
Saint Therese. Interestingly enough, I because I had such a difficult time in high school, like with my parents, I kind of wanted to separate myself from the faith a little bit, which is ironic because I was at a very Catholic university. But I stopped going to mass for the first 3 years of college, Sunday mass. Wow. And I was like very much in the underground party scene at Franciscan, which is definitely a thing. Off campus. But I really, I didn't like going to mass. I didn't want to be reminded because I didn't really see my family during college. It was kind of like on my own. I would stay there during the holidays. And I love the people that I had really good friends those first few years. And then I had a professor who kind of like saw what I was doing, and she like she wanted me to take a class with her. So I started taking St. Catherine of Siena. And at Franciscan, I was getting like pretty much like straight A's. And then I wrote a paper for her at her class, and she gave me a C minus. And I had never gotten anything below like a B. And I was like, went to her and I was like, what the heck? Like, and she was like, this was a terrible paper. You had like, and I had never heard that before. So it like really kind of like woke me up and challenged me. And so it was like, can I like rewrite it? And she was like, no, like this is the grade that I've given you. And I was like shocked.
Oh man.
So it kind of like, I don't know, it challenged me. And so then the next paper that I gave to her, she gave me like a B. I was like, what? And she was like, it wasn't that great. Like, you know, it's not an A paper. So I ended up taking over 6 classes with her, and including theology of the body. And in that class, I finally got an A with her. And I actually ended up framing that paper for like,
that's amazing.
No joke. So she really like brought me back, and like I took the theology of the body class, stopped partying, and then started going to mass and confession like regularly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very different Franciscan experience, I think, from a lot of people, though.
Yeah, that is really cool, though. The fact that a professor with papers, you know, like an essay is what led you kind of back into the faith, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then you go on to get your MBA and you went to 2 other colleges afterwards, right?
So after Franciscan, I was a youth minister in the Archdiocese of Miami.
Okay.
So I did that for 3 years, and I did director of youth, young adult, college, campus ministry, parent ministry. I was in charge of like 10 ministries. It was insane. And the parish I was at is the largest in the Archdiocese of Miami. Mm-hmm. So there was over like, I think 3,000 kids in the programs, and the previous youth minister had been like really beloved. So it was like coming into a situation, like the new person and like the change. And I didn't know a single person at the parish except for one of the priests, associate pastors, who I'm still friends with, Father Andrew. And he was like really wanted me to be there because I came from Franciscan. And he's like, you're the youngest person by like 30 years in like the staff. So he's like, you'll get like you'll get the kids a lot more than like, you know, other people we have. But it was a really intense experience. But then I did feel called to leave. That's when I transitioned into entrepreneurship. But the other college experiences that I had were later. But the youth ministry part, when I was feeling called to leave, that was like a really difficult time because I had really great mentors in youth ministry who are still lifelong youth ministers. I had a lot of friends. I relied on like the Facebook groups for like support, and like, you know, was going to like Project YM was just starting at that point. So there was not a ton of resources, but like I still had a good community of like friends from Franciscan who were in youth ministry. And when I was thinking about leaving, they were like, you're not going to be able to serve God in the way that you can through ministry. And my mentors who were in youth ministry had tried maybe at some point to leave youth ministry or parish life and had been unsuccessful because they didn't know how to translate their skills into the professional world. So they also discouraged me, and they're like, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to make it. So it was a very like isolating time because I really felt called to leave, and I already felt guilty for, you know, possibly leaving the kids that I had been around for the last 3 years. And so that was a difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine the moment where it's gonna, you know, like I'm in ministry right now. I'm in my 3rd year, and you know, you think about these things of what else, you know, if there's another parish, and you know, the lifespan for youth ministers in general, the lifelong ones. They're few and far between. There's not always a calling for everyone. You know, it's a thing that some people kind of want to phase out of after a few years, try something new, or you know, they start a family and it gets a little bit more difficult, you know, and so I know like the few friends that I've had who have left their ministry jobs, it has been a very like kind of similar experience, not necessarily where people are discouraging them, but more so it's hard to leave the kids that you've created a bond with, like the community that you created there, and a lot of the things that you work hard towards, and then like thinking about how it will look like after you leave, if it will stay or if kids will stop coming because it's not you anymore, and things like that. And so that's a little difficult to think about. A little difficult. I know that much.
Yeah. Plus on the other side too, I had mentors that I had grown up with from my parents went to Stanford University. So I was blessed that I had mentors that I could go to on the professional side. But even when I was leaving ministry, they were like, you're not going to find people who want to hire you, because like, how are you going to translate your ministry skills or your church work into something that people are going to accept you for? So that was also discouraging. And my parents also said, like, you're also probably going to fail, because like what you do in your early 20s sets you up for the rest of your life. And so it was like kind of discouragement from like all sides. But like, as I had mentioned, like my experience in high school really gave me like a lot of grit and perseverance. And for me, leaving, there was really no option of like going back to ministry, because I really felt like I was not supposed to be in it anymore. And like, I really believe that if you are being called out of something, you shouldn't stay, because you're going to do more damage to yourself and then the people around you.
Right.
So I moved to Austin, Texas, without knowing a single person. Wow. I just kind of wanted to experience barbecue and be away from Florida, and just into a new environment. And so I started out there and started working with some clients that I had met. And it was just totally different. But yeah, that's that journey and that first process of being isolated and feeling very discouraged is part of what led me into starting Mission to Launch.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing that, you know, we feel like it's really hard to transition out of. It's amazing because it's like, I feel like everyone feels this way. And until recently, I've, like thought the same way. If I'm in ministry, I'm going to be working for the church or in some sort of ministry the rest of my life. But it's in fact not the case. And if you're in ministry and you want to transition out and go into corporate America, you can, and it's possible. There's a lot of skills that we learn. I mean, like, take the focused missionaries, right? They learn such like awesome skills as missionaries that it's pretty easy for them to transition out of being a missionary and into a non-ministerial job because of the things that they learn. It's just we as youth ministers, we don't get the same training, right? And we kind of think of it not in terms of business or anything like that. But there's so much value into what we learn as ministers. And I think it's really important. So I love this whole thing that you're doing with Mission to Launch. And I can see kind of already how, your faith and your career kind of like has kind of intertwined with each other. But do you mind sharing a little bit how that, is the case? So how has your faith played a role in your professional career and getting you to the places that you've gone since leaving ministry? Yeah.
So I would say that keeping integrity at the center of all things. A lot of people in the business world, professional world in general, lie about a lot of like what they do, which I think shocked me. Like, I knew about it, but I think it shocked me to see people, especially men that I've encountered in the professional world, to try to get like a leg up on people. That has been really interesting just to watch, and just seeing like the difference. And when you present yourself as a person of integrity, it like really stands out, and much more than I would have thought. So I do try to go to mass often, even during COVID, try to find different places. And something that's really helped me too is the Hallow app. They're also a partner with us, but love Hallow. They do like the daily Lectio Divina, which I've always tried to do Lectio Divina on my own. And I always got distracted, but like Hallow is great for that. And then also for some reason I end up having a lot of clients that are Catholic, but like it's really interesting because I love having come from Franciscan and getting a degree in theology and being a youth minister, we were always talking about the new evangelization. But in the new evangelization, you're trying to reach people like on the fringes, and those people are not at church. Like there might be the kids who are being forced into ministry by their parents, but like you're not really reaching people like who are really on the fringes, because those people are not at parishes, they're not on Facebook in the Catholic groups, they're not following Catholic Instagrams for sure.
Right.
So it's super interesting, but like I've never really said I was Catholic. Like I have a stylist and a hairstylist and my accountant and just different clients or people that I've met, and I've never really brought up the fact that I was Catholic, but then people will tell me on their own, like, oh, I haven't gone to confession in like 15 years, or I haven't gone to mass in like 10 years. Or, I was like in an Uber randomly and being dropped off at mass, and he was like, oh, why are you coming here? And I was like, oh, because I'm going to confession and mass. And he was like, oh, I haven't been to confession in like 40 years. I'm like, well, it's never too late to start. So I think just being the authentically bold and like a faith is just like a part of my daily journey and like our daily part of my life. So I kind of just bring it up and just like I'm not afraid. And then also again, like people with clients, I happen to get clients that sometimes are Catholic, but I don't really seek it out. But like people are just kind of, it's like a weird magnet. I'm like, God, why is it like I don't actually have any like really like secular friends, because like all my friends that I met who I thought were secular are all just fallen away Catholics, and then they start coming back to mass. And so I'm like, like perpetually a youth minister without realizing it.
That's amazing though. That's so cool how like the Lord is kind of like obviously using you in certain ways and putting you in certain situations to continue this work that he's setting you out for. Because that's not common. If I meet people they're definitely not Catholic or have any experience with Catholicism, but it's really cool to that you're able to be faced with certain situations like that. It's definitely not a common thing, so that's really cool that you're continuing to do the evangelization part of the work, the Great Commission.
Right, which is why I think it's so important to be. I think there's a lot of Catholic young professionals that I know who are afraid, whether they come from ministry or not, who are afraid to be Catholic or show that they're Catholic or show any kind of faith in the workplace because they can't. I mean, I've been like, I work a lot in Palo Alto, which is Silicon Valley, and there's a lot of like anti-faith sentiment there. And I can understand why it can be like, if you're not perfectly comfortable with who you are, and you don't have confidence built up and mindset and realize that it's very important to be authentically yourself, that can definitely be intimidating. But I have definitely gone into situations where there's been like anti-Catholic sentiment, and I've just been, well, I'm Catholic, like what do you have against me, basically. But I'm also somebody who like charges forward and like is not really afraid of saying like the really quote unquote hard things. Like I'm very much against socialism, for example, and I say that all the time, and like people, you just have to like accept it or not. But I wasn't always that way. When I was coming out of ministry, I was definitely like more afraid. Like, what are people going to think of me? I think my job had conditioned me, and in ministry, that I couldn't say some things. Like the previous youth minister, for example, was a guy, and he talked about pornography, like the evils of pornography to the kids, and it was accepted. And then I tried to bring up the same topic, and I was almost fired for it. So it was like definitely, yeah. And I was also like almost fired for being pro-life and talking about it at my job. So
what?
So I was definitely like, I definitely had to grow out of that and realize that was not like the normal thing, and that being authentically myself was very key to being Catholic. And if I wasn't myself, my faith would also suffer. Then I felt like I had to hide a part of myself from God and wouldn't bring that into prayer. Yeah. But it was, I don't know, the other part of Mission to Launch is like realizing that we have to be boldly ourselves to bring the faith to where it's needed most, because that boldness and that authenticity is going to shine through. And if you're not comfortable with something, or you're hiding something, that's going to come through, and then people are going to be like, that person is not authentic, and they're hiding something. You might be like having a ton of fun and real, but if you're hiding a part of yourself, it's gonna come through.
Right. That's so great. It's so that's why we're here. I mean, we try to be as authentic as we can, and I strive on like honesty and vulnerability, because it's the way to people's hearts. People know, and when someone is being putting on a facade, people understand that and can read that from a mile away. Especially children, like teens, like they can read that from a mile away, and it's hard because if with my teens, I mean, I haven't been in person with them since like COVID, right? But we've been doing online ministry and when it's going all right. But so there's been times where with my teens, I'm having a bad day and they know it. They like, or I'm mad about something, or I'm annoyed either about them or something they did or whatever. And I try to pass it off. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm just trying to be patient, try to move on. They're like, okay, what did we do? What did we say? And they'll just like pick at me until I like tell them. So I'm like, okay, here's what I didn't like, or here's what I'm mad at, and whether it be about them or something else. And then I'm like, okay, so why are you holding it out on us? And and so they know, and so it's all hard to not be authentic while in ministry. Hopefully that, you are able to translate that into other parts of your life, because like you said, it's something that people read right through. So,
yeah.
All right. So what, he's so loud. So what in like we were talking about Mission to Launch now. So like, what exactly kind of like inspired you to start this Mission to Launch?
Yeah, so it's been a process. I've had the idea for a few years of how do you teach. It was mostly because my friends were being called to leave ministry and they would encounter difficult situations.
Yeah.
And they would then think that that leaving ministry wasn't really for them, and that when they encountered a difficult situation, because they didn't have the perseverance or the skill sets necessary to charge through hard situations, they would go back into a ministry situation because they knew how to build programs, they knew how to recruit and fundraise, and like, it was still hard, but like that for them, it was a place of like comfort. And so it was like, we're not really meant for comfort, right? We're meant for greatness, and we're meant for great things. And them falling back into that place of comfort is going to do them a lot of harm. And so it's like, there has to be a way to teach people at scale, like skill sets and how to thrive, not just in the workplace, but then how do you build perseverance? How do you build like the willingness not to ever give up, which is something that I definitely have. So I had that idea for a while. And then I came across masterclass.com, which has like the, executive and celebrities teaching classes. They shouldn't necessarily be teaching those classes, but they're still teaching them. And so I was like, okay, this is like a way to teach people at scale, like real skill sets. And so last year was when I started more forming like the course syllabus for Mission to Launch, and then created something called Alt Mentorship, which is realizing the need for young adults to have mentors, but that a lot of the alt mentors that we have at Mission to Launch don't mentor anymore because they've had encounter people coming from ministry or just like young adults in general that have problems with like boundary issues, like scheduling issues. Like a lot of executives get canceled on. Like I have a mentor that I meet once a year and I have to schedule with him 8 months in advance. And you can't cancel on someone like that, but they get canceled on all the time. And so there's these amazing people who have such a wealth of knowledge and can really help us level up, but they don't want to do it because they've been burned. So there was like that issue. And then the issue of young adults needing mentorship, especially coming from ministry or nonprofit or just young Catholic professionals in general. And so the alt mentorship is that solution. So executives and CEOs commit 3 hours a year to Mission to Launch, and that like for us to answer questions from our paying members. And then our paying members get to submit questions via like a form. And let's say like the month of January is for finance. And so we have people from one of the co-founders of Hallow. He was from Goldman Sachs, which is investment banking. Yeah, really cool. And then we have this woman named Kathy Anderson, and she's a retired CEO of Lockheed Martin Finance Corporation. And then we have a chief operating officer of Credit Suisse, which is a $26 billion investment banking company. And we have about 5 or 6 other people who are in finance. So if you have any kind of finance, investing questions, also people who manage over 800 million assets under management for real estate. If you have any kind of those questions, paying members get to submit their questions. to the alt mentors. We send those questions to different alt mentors. They record those answers via video and upload that content. We upload that content to our platform. So basically the vision with that is, let's say you have a difficult situation at work or in your life, you can essentially Google, quote unquote, Google within our platform that mentorship advice, and get to watch mentorship on demand, which doesn't really exist currently. You have to like schedule something with a mentor, so the vision, mentorship on demand, which is just a small part of Mission to Launch because we have the course experience. So it's the part of like, how do you teach people how to interview? How do you teach people how to negotiate? We have Stanford lecturer and former, she's like worked with the CEOs of like Apple, Google, Shell Oil, pharmaceutical companies, like world's top like Fortune 50 companies, the CEOs of those companies. She's teaching and negotiate. How do you translate your Christian Catholic values into effective negotiation? We have people, how do you identify your transferable skills from ministry into like six different type of jobs in corporate America? How do you identify your dreams, building mindset from scarcity into abundance, and a couple other classes. And then classes that we have coming in 2021 is more like those skill sets that everybody's like, I wish I knew how to do my taxes. I wish I knew how to invest. How does the stock market work? How do, like, I'm a mother and like, I'm not a mother, but mothers who want to get into business. Like, how do you be a mother? How do you build a budget? Like just very practical skills. So it's Mission to Launch is more than just like, if you're going through a career transition, but eventually we'll be learning those very basic skill sets that is not taught in high school or in college or even by parents sometimes.
Right. And so all of these mentors and people that you have part of this, are they Catholic or are they just a bunch of people that, like who are professionals in this area?
So right now they're all Catholic. We are going to be expanding to the Christian non-Catholic world in a few years. More like next year. But right now they're all Catholic. And they, even the ones that are coming on next year who are not Catholic, they're very Christian evangelical, and very, very faithful who are, we have some incredible people coming on next year who train people for like TED conferences, like the not TEDx, but like the TED conferences, and are like CEOs of multi-billion-dollar, like multinational corporations. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
there's some crazy. Like one, you even have an NBA commissioner. Was that? Not commissioner, owner.
NBA team owner. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Who is it?
Doreen Dominguez. She's the CEO of a $23 billion construction company, and she also co-owns the Sacramento Kings. Wow. And she's the first Catholic Latina to co-own an NBA team.
That is awesome. Wow, go her. Wow, that's amazing. That's like, it just, you see the array of people that are part of Mission to Launch, and it's really like inspiring. To see all these amazing people who are willing and interested in helping others in their own personal development, or just like daily practical things, like you said, like taxes and how to start a business, or how to be a mom. Like that's really cool to kind of to have something. So I guess the goal of Mission to Launch is very, very, very big and very ambitious, but I think it's something that definitely is needed. I don't think we knew we needed until recently.
One thing that's really cool too is so we have over 45 alt mentors who are all either senior executives or CEOs, and like pretty much every kind of industry you can imagine, like advertising, media, legal, tech, viticulture, which is winemaking, real estate, investment, venture capital, private equity, just other very awesome entrepreneurs who have had like $100 million exits. So like they've sold their companies to like bigger, firms. And that they all saw that Mission to Launch was the solution, really the only solution that the world currently has to offer young Catholic professionals, whether you're coming from ministry or just a young Catholic professional in general, of like, young Catholic professionals and Catholics have a problem with being boldly ourselves in the workplace. And that if we are, as Catholics are really formed, or even just interested in developing our faith, and we're in these places where we're going to be meeting people who have been away from the faith for so long, not only are we going to see a tremendous culture change, that we're also like the real culture changes really, I think, happen at the top places in leadership. And these executives are like, we need more people in the boardrooms where all these policies are being made. Because right now, if you look at leadership across America in terms of who's sitting on the corporate boards, who's like making leadership decisions and policy decisions in the White House and across the nation in general, these people are not necessarily Catholic, and they're definitely not well formed. And it's a lot of the reason we have a culture of death is there's like a lot of prayer going, forward, and which, everybody I know is pro-life and prays for a culture of life. But if you're not doing the action part, and the action part of being in the workplace and making those changes and confronting the anti-Catholic Semitism or sentiment, then like, how are you going to see real change in the world? Like, prayer is amazing and we need it, and it's the first step. But if there's no like action follow-up, like it kind of falls flat. So we need to be in the workplace, and we need to be there. And it can be a scary thing coming from ministry. Like, are my skills really valuable? And they definitely are. I would say one skill that I learned specifically in ministry was networking, because I had to you have in ministry, you have to cold approach people. Yeah. And like ask them to join your programs, and like convince like a teenager who wants to go get donuts that your program is like the hottest thing since sliced bread. So if you can do that, you can network with venture capital and like, people who are worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. You can it's actually super easy, but you just have to learn how to like a vocabulary shift and how to identify those skills. And I've turned networking. So the networking skill that I learned in ministry, I now offer that to CEOs starting at $15,000 a month.
That's awesome.
So the skills that you have in ministry are super valuable.
That's awesome.
Mission to Launch is here to help you realize your dreams and realize like what you can do, not just in, if you want to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, but in corporate America or wherever you're being called to. Like, your dreams are super important, need to be fulfilled, and you can make money, and money is not a bad thing. And Jesus is not against money. He's only against money when you're focused on money as like the God. But like in the Bible, he had wealthy friends, like those long tables he talks about, like places of honor. Those are wealthy people he's friends with.
Right.
And so I think coming from ministry, there's such a scarcity mindset. Like, we only have one set of donors. There's only one budget. And we oftentimes carry that into the world. And so without really even knowing it, you're just kind of like, those dreams that I have are not meant for me, not meant to be fulfilled. But then you carry that and you encounter other people, and you kind of continue the cycle. When we really need to realize that we're meant for big things, because we are created in the image of likeness of God. Really, God does impossible things, so we can do impossible things. And our dreams are meant and are big and bold. And we need to be, but we really need to be trained in how to grasp onto those dreams. So Mission to Launch, it was really designed. I actually designed it specifically for people coming from youth ministry and focus missionaries, and then we expanded it to young Catholic professionals. But like, if you're going through a transition and like debating, like Mission to Launch has the community, the alt mentors, the courses to train you how to learn new skill sets to fulfill your dreams. Dreams is not a frivolous thing. I believe it's tied to your vocation, both little vocation and big V vocation, and will help you get to heaven. But you need to be trained really how to do that. And if you're just kind of thrown into the world, you could flounder around for a bit. I have a friend who discerned out of seminary, and he's working like a minimum wage job and was very unhappy. And he was like, I have these dreams, but I have no idea how I'm going to get there. And I was like, is this being brought to me by the devil? Or like, so like, it's so frustrating to see that, because we have, amazing things that are placed in our hearts, but there's no training around that. And so Mission to Launch really fills that void for, finding that training and that support. That's a little bit why I'm just really passionate about.
I love it. I love it so much. It's so great to see like that. One, you're like really enthusiastic about it, but also like it's like an important thing to be enthusiastic about, because it gets like I was talking to some people like, this podcast gets me excited about things that I didn't know I could be excited about. I was really excited about this, but there's been some people that like come on and I'm like, oh, this is a cool thing. But then like after the end of the podcast and interview, I'm like, I love this. Like, I want to be part of whatever this is, and it's really cool to see all these people a part of it. So we're gonna come back with more of this about Mission to Launch and some of the cool things that they're doing, but also some tips that you find useful if you're somebody who is trying to transition out of ministry. All right, we'll be right back after this break. So we are back with Elena Nunez Murdock, the founder of Mission to Launch, but also Ascend Communications and Enclave. And we're talking about, really Mission to Launch and a lot of the things that have been going on there, and a bit about her journey. So, we talked a lot about the goals for Mission to Launch and all the great things that they're doing there. But, part of the conversation I also wanted to talk was, can you kind of go back to your story, and what are some of the we kind of talked to you earlier, and we talked about successes and setbacks and things that those things have taught you. So is there any of those things, like successes, setbacks, that has taught you key lessons in life and your faith and in your career?
Yeah, I would say first that being an entrepreneur and being a business owner has increased my faith, because I'm definitely someone who thrives in hard situations, and prayer increases in hard situations, and I keep going through difficult situations, which is, I'm sure, part of God's plan for me. But in terms of it just helps me grow and expand in ways that I wouldn't if it was just all smooth sailing. And then being in business is definitely difficult. But I would say that there was a kind of a success and a setback. I went through a situation last year that I was going into a client situation, and I really thought that I was doing everything right, and that I just had a lot of ego and a lot of pride, because I had a lot of really great successes. I had gotten my clients into the Wall Street Journal, into the Harvard Business Review, and I was really riding a high wave, and that, which was great. And then I came into a situation where it was very open communication, and I learned very quickly, being around others, that I had a lot of flaws that I needed to work on.
Yeah.
And which is good. But when you're, the head of your own company or companies, and you have employees, you really don't notice what exactly is going wrong, unless, and then I was in a situation where it was very quickly brought to my attention, and I was a little bit shocked. But that situation ended up stripping away a lot of my ego, or almost all of my ego, over the last year or so. And so it was a brutal situation, in the sense that I was really rocked, which was good and necessary. But I would say always making sure you have friends who will give you real and honest feedback is really key. And I ended up getting rid of a lot of friends or people that I thought were my friends, who were just kind of propping up my ego even more. And so, because it's hard to work on yourself, in general. You don't usually think you're doing anything wrong. So the client situation, it was really brutal. And then I learned that you have to forgive yourself for things, and you can't necessarily base your reaction and your circumstance on what somebody else has done, because you're not responsible for that other person. So I let go of a lot of things that was keeping me back. So and that really also, in the stripping away of ego, realized that I needed to rely on God a lot more, because I was relying on myself to bring on clients a lot more. I was praying, but I wasn't praying specifically around that. So I started doing a lot of mindset work and script writing and affirmations around work and trusting in God. And there's an affirmation that I do that says, I trust that everything is aligning perfectly for me, even and especially if I cannot see it. And that's in the same line of affirmations that I do around my prayer. I pray with ease every day, even if it's not always easy. I trust God with ease. And then right after that, I do that. I trust that everything is aligning perfectly for me, even and especially if I cannot see it. Because there's a lot of stuff going on that you can't see, but it could all be working out. And that also relieves a lot of stress. So before last year, the failure that I had it wasn't really a failure, but it was more of just a personal failure, and that I thought that I had failed tremendously. And so that, again, stripping away ego was very necessary for me to take on Mission to Launch and take on new employees, because your responsibility to your employees is tremendous. You have to, lead them and guide them in a way you really can't with volunteers. And so I had done a lot of volunteer work, from ministry, and had managed hundreds of volunteers, but you can't, it's very different. So I'm really glad that I went through that experience. It just has led me closer to God. And I definitely still go through a lot of times where I have a lot of times struggling with prayer. It's just I think, a part of being human, perhaps. Some
Yeah.
people are amazing at prayer and they do it every day no matter what. I've gone through a lot of valleys in that, but realizing that I really like, there are some weeks where I'm just like, man, like, God, I cannot get through this week without you.
Yeah.
So the failures have helped me realize more acutely that I really am human and that I cannot do all things unless I really have God with me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's something that, I mean, we posted recently. Like, I think it was yesterday's post on our social media on Living Ardently. We said, the same Padre Pio quote. I'm not sure if I'm familiar, but it's, if you should fail, be humble, make resolution, and be submissive to God's will. Then get up and carry on. And something is it sounds so like, yeah, you failed. Oh well, like let's admit to it, and let's carry on, and then let God kind of continue the work in your heart. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but other times when you've built that confidence in the Lord, confidence in yourself, things like that come a little bit easier as you fail more often. Yeah. And so would you say that then it's important to fail?
Yeah. I would say, like, fail hard and fail fast as soon as possible, because the older you get, the harder it's going to be to fail. But even as you get older, it's important to fail, and you need to be working with people who are supporting that. I think when I was in youth ministry, I was terrified of failure because I was told that if I failed, I would get fired. So I think that the leadership that I had was like, I was terrified of like doing anything wrong, which then when I left ministry, I carried that mindset with me. Yeah. But in business, like if you're in the professional world, if you're in corporate America, or you have your own business, or in a startup, for example, like, it's important to fail really quickly so you can learn how to make that process better for your clients and your customers. So you definitely need to welcome failure. It's a good thing, which was really hard for me to like recognize and learn, because again, just like being in ministry and being in the nonprofit world, like, you're terrified of failure because you're afraid you're going to get fired, and there's a lot of negative connotations around it. But if you look at like the startup world, if you look at Silicon Valley, if you look at the blogs that are around from like venture capitalists, they talk about failure as being critical for success.
Yeah, it's something that I think we need to be comfortable with, failure and thing, because when we're able to, like you said, it's something that we learn from and can grow from, and we can continue to adapt to, things like you learn from these things. And I think that, the most important thing is not to get discouraged when you fail, because when we fail, it's so easy to kind of like get down on yourself. It's like, oh man, I am such a failure, and start going into that rabbit hole of pity party, and I mean, easy, like you said, easier said than done, but it's something that we should be comfortable with, especially if you're trying to transition into, the business world, business side of things. So now, what we said earlier before we got into the break, we said that we would give some tips for people who are discerning to leave ministry. And I think that's something that some people here are hoping to hear from you. So what are some tips that you have for those who who are discerning to leave ministry?
Yes, I would say that if you are feeling that call to leave, and if you've started discerning, most people that I've encountered, I would say over 99% of people who are discerning to leave ministry are really called to leave ministry, but don't necessarily want to admit it yet. I would say admitting it to yourself sooner rather than later, and realizing that's what's happening, is something you should accept, because the longer you stay in something you're not really being called to and God doesn't necessarily want you in, is not going to be a good thing. It might be a comfortable thing, but it's not a good thing. Just, and so if you feel like even just like a tinge of like, man, I should really think about leaving, I would say like jump on that as fast as possible. Seriously, because again, like, you're not going to be serving those who you're ministering to. There might be somebody else that they're being like needs to be in their life next. And if you're not leaving and you're like, oh, well, there's nobody else who can do this as good as I can do it, it's very prideful, I think. It's something that I've definitely thought. Or like, these kids, like, where would they be without me? Like, first of all, you're not their parent. So it's their parents who really need to do you need to hope that you've given the parents enough formation and hopefully have a parent ministry. If you don't have a parent ministry, start a parent ministry and give them the tools to equip their children. But ultimately, you're not responsible for their souls. They would definitely, like, hopefully have made an impact and they remember that. If not, they might get a little bit lost during college. I've seen that happen and I felt guilty for that. But it's not your responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility. And you're definitely there to plant seeds, but like not necessarily see the whole, tree grow. Right. So main thing is, if you feel called to leave, run, not walk to the next thing. It's not going to serve you to stay longer or anybody around you. I would say that identifying your dreams, like there's 3 dreams that I like, 3 categories of dreams I like to talk about, and just to start identifying them. So there's a possible dream, stretch dream, and impossible dreams. Okay. So your possible dream is something you should ideally be living in, or if you're not living in, you know all the steps to get there, all the skills, but you should be in that. Your stretch dream is something that you identify as like, man, I see that over there and I want to be there and I kind of know how to get there, but it's important to identify that dream and write it down. Always like write all these things down, because that also rewires your brain into accepting a new reality. And then also identifying your impossible dreams. So impossible dreams are literally that. You probably have no idea how to get there. It's like, man, I want to like someday, I mean, this is not me, but I know like we have an alt mentor who's a co-owner of an NBA team. Maybe you want to own like an NFL team, or like, be like Mark, or like do something crazy like that, which is super awesome. So identify and write down the impossible dreams. For myself, for example, I just turned 30 on Tuesday, and before age 30, thank you. By age 33, I'd like to have like 33 million in the bank account, and I have no idea really how to get there, but that's like something that I really want to do. I also want to be the youngest woman in America to sit on the board of a publicly traded company, so like Coca-Cola or like Bank of America or Chase or something. So the youngest woman right now is 32. So I have less than 2 years to do that.
You got to get on it. That's awesome.
So identifying like why you want to have those impossible dreams, like not just for the sake of like pride and ego, but just like, are those things going to help you? Ideally your impossible dreams are going to help you get to heaven, and also lead into your big V vocations, like getting married, religious life, whatever. And you can definitely do like impossible dreams if you're being called to be a priest, because there's that cooking priest, Father Leo, who was like on a cooking show, so just you're in priesthood or religious life doesn't mean your dreams have to die at all. Right. But also like there's so much value in being like a faithful husband and father, and being a working professional who's been well formed and reaching people on the fringes in the workplace. So that's like a couple things, like acknowledging your dreams. And then if you're looking for community and like guidance and support, like that's a large part of why I started Mission to Launch, was for people coming from those places. So you can find in Mission to Launch specifically community of people who are going through a transition and going through that difficult time. And it's really, I think, important to have people who understand where you're coming from and like where you're going, because you can like say to your friends like, oh, please pray for me. But if they don't deeply understand or have been in that place themselves, they can pray for you, but I don't know that they would be like I'm just going to say a Hail Mary for this person, instead of like, well, I'm going to add this person to like my mass intentions, or get a mass for this person. So I think that the difference in sincerity and prayer differs, and it's important to be in community with those people. But really the big thing is, if you're being called to leave, like don't be afraid to encounter difficult situations, because life is difficult, but it's through those really difficult situations, especially as no matter where you are in life, it's going to expand you. It's going to allow a lot of like greater success to flow through you, which I know it's not new agey, I promise, but it's like, but it the more you grow and the more difficult situations you've been in, you're able to then mentor other people who are going through those difficult situations, and you're able to lend your expertise to them. So don't be afraid of encountering hard things. That's what really forms us, from the coal into being the diamonds. It's going to shine brightly in heaven,
So true. Oh, that was so good. It's so true because when we look at it, I mean, like we all need mentorship, and we all need to be, and our mentors don't just come from like, oh yeah, I did nothing and I got here. No, like they come from how they get there and how they become mentors is because they achieve something that you want to achieve, right? And you look towards them, and they mentor you. And like I have a couple of mentors right now that whether one in ministry, one in like in the for podcasting / ministry online. So it's they're two different ways of ministering, but they're also very similar. And so there's a lot of blessings when it comes to having mentorship, but also it comes like this really good like relationship that you never knew that you needed. And so if you don't have a mentor, and if you don't understand why you need a mentor, I mean, there's a lot of books out there you can read as to why mentorship is important, not only for teens and young people, but for us as adults, young professionals. So go out there and try that. And what were the three things, the dreams? So there's a stretch dream, the possible dream, and
the possible dream is the one you should be living in, stretch dream, and impossible dream. And it's important to write them down and like constantly re-looking at them, because their dreams are always changing, because their life is always changing. They should never really be the same.
Yeah, I love that because I consider myself to be a dreamer. Like things that I love to think about, and having them written down is never something I really thought about, but it's something that I think is really important to try out. So I challenge you all to kind of do that this week. And if you are listening, and go on social media, tag us, tag Mission to Launch, tag Living Ardently, and just show us your dreams, your current dream, your possible dream, your stretch dream, and your impossible dream, and let's see them, and like put it out there in the world. Let's see it go. Yes. And now the last thing we usually ask our guests here. Hopefully those tips were beneficial for you, but there's also some we like to do these shout outs at the end of the podcast to see if there's somebody that you guys can follow on Instagram or somewhere and benefit from. And so what are some of the people that you want to give a shout out to?
Yes, so I'd love it for people to come follow us on Mission 2, the number 2 launch on Instagram. Also our website is mission2launch.com. We are extending a special extended enrollment for your podcast listeners. Yes. We did end on the Feast of St. Leo the Great, which is November 10th. We are extending that for anybody who's listening, even though it'll say closed. If you email a lady, her name is Elizabeth Santamaria, her email is on the website. Just say, hey, I listened to the podcast. And then also use the code LAUNCH2020 for 10% off your membership, either the subscription 12-month membership or the one-time payment. And then this year, I'm really excited to announce that you get lifetime membership. So when you finish paying, you get access to all other courses for the rest of your life, for all eternity, as long as we're in existence. And you will never have to pay again, basically. So we're only offering that this year. So sign up in 2020, get the support you need to realize your dreams, to be boldly yourself in the professional world. Your dreams are possible and they're meant to be fulfilled. And the skills you have learned in ministry are so valuable. I can speak from experience. I went from being a youth minister to being a 6-figure business owner under 4 years. So if I can do it with being from Franciscan, and I have friends who studied theology at Christendom, University of Dallas, Ave, who have also made that journey, you can definitely make that journey. And Mission to Launch is here, so you don't have to go through it alone. And we're here to give you the course experience, the alt mentors, the community, and the internship board and job board in 2021 as well. Super pumped for what's to come. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Thanks so much. So make sure, again, all they have to do is, go to Mission to Launch and email. The URL is specifically mission2launch.com/register. And then they can enter the code LAUNCH2020. Perfect. And just again, if do they have to email somebody to mention?
If it says closed or if it looks closed, just email Elizabeth at mission2launch.com.
Perfect. And then again, if you sign up by this year, you get lifetime, and that's awesome. So go do that. highly recommend taking advantage of it, because
just like one course, for example, just really quick, the negotiation course. If you would take that course like at Stanford University, because that's where the instructor taught, and a semester at Stanford University starts at $29,000. So you're getting that for $797 or $79 a month for 12 months.
That's crazy. So highly recommend, go check it out. Definitely worth it. Every single penny. I'm sure you'll all benefit from it, especially those who are trying to transition out of ministry into the business world. So Elena, thank you again for coming and being part of the podcast. It was really a pleasure to have you and converse about these amazing things in entrepreneurship, and talk about failure, and also just all of Mission to Launch's like mission and doing all the cool things that you all are doing there. So make sure you follow them, Mission to Launch, on Instagram. Follow us on Living Ardently. Follow me personally at It's Only Adrian. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and to subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, and leave us a rating and review. It helps us a lot. Follow anywhere else that you're listening. And I think that's all we got. We got one more episode for this year, and then we're done. So leave it up with a bang. We're going to do amazing things next week with Jarrell. Thanks again, Elena. You have last things to say?
Just thank you so much for having me on, and I'm really excited to see you and to see everybody. If you sign up for Mission to Launch to fulfill your dreams, and you just realize that your dreams, that God has given them to you, and they're meant to be fulfilled, and they're super important, because without you, the world is kind of like the ocean of mercy. Like without that drop that you need to do, it's going to look forever different. We just need to make sure we do our part for the kingdom. And if you're in ministry and are being called out of it, do not be afraid. Like John Paul II says, God is here with you, and Mission to Launch is also here for you.
Praise God. Thank you so much. Thanks you all for listening. Hope this benefited you in some way, shape, or form. God bless you guys. And until next week, keep living ardently. Peace.